Hello and welcome to another episode of PsycKicks. My name is Liv, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things metaphysical, spiritual, paranormal, and in between. Today is part 2 of our tarot theory small mini-series, side quest, if you will. So if this is your first time listening to this podcast, you can listen to this one. We're going to talk about the minor arcana and spreads today. So if you're not interested in learning about like the history or the backstory and the major arcana or the trump cards that we learned about last week, then don't listen to it. But if that's something that you want to listen to before listening to this one, go back to episode 199 because that's what we're going to talk about there. Additionally, we're going to be going through more cards today because we're going to be going through the minor arcana. So that's 56 instead of only 22. So if you want, set out your cards or go grab them, pause the podcast real quick, come back, sit down, crisscross applesauce, grab something that's delicious to drink because we're going to really lay everything out in a more visual way, because I know at least that helps me. Unless you're super skookum smart and you just want to listen to this, go about your day and not really have to look at anything, then that's totally fine too. But go grab your cards if you want to, come back, sit down. We're going to go through a recap from last week real quick and then get right on into the major arcana. All right, so last week we learned that tarot was originally a card game called Tarocco that originated in Italy during the Renaissance period and was only mostly played among the fancy smancy aristocracy. So much so that if you were rich enough and cool enough, you would have an artist make a deck specifically for you, which is where a lot of today's understanding of Tarocco and its derivations called Tarocchi and other different names all came about. It was originally created in order to have additional playing cards, i.e. known as trump cards, which is what we now know as the major arcana in more divination, spiritual understanding of tarot cards. But they were specifically created in order to play the fun card game. So if you were to draw a certain card or lay down a certain card that was one of the pip cards, which is the 1 through 10 minor arcana, then you could use a trump card to win the hand. Now, it wasn't until Jean-Baptiste Alliette in like 1730s, 1750s, who actually decided to use tarot cards as a form of divination, i.e. cartomancy. And he's the one that coined the term cartomancy itself and started giving meanings to all of the tarot cards, etc., etc. Now, last week, we talked about how the major arcana, the 22 cards, are in order from 0 to 21. They have their number association as well as their names written on the card, which started happening in 1600s in France before tarot was used as divination, but they didn't really have the names or the numbers associated on the card up until then. But now, today, the major arcana has the numbers as well as the names on the cards listed at the top and the bottom, depending on who the artist and the creator of the card is. These major arcana cards, or you could also call them the trump cards, because I think that's a little more fun, they are to represent big life events. They are like the main character energy. Last week, we talked about how tarot is actually just the hero's journey, or the fool's journey, if you will, because the fool is the first card in the major arcana, starting at the number 0 and moving towards that hero's journey, ending with the world card. So tarot is just the story of the fool. It's the hero's journey, and there's ups and downs. There's a beginning and a middle and an end. And it's just interesting how through divination, or the use of tarot cards in divination instead of just normal card playing, that is a theme throughout. I find it funny because I was thinking about this and I forgot to say it in the podcast last week, how, people are like, it's the game of life. Life is just a game. And literally when you have tarot cards, it is the hero's journey using the fool as the symbolism. And it was a game. Literally tarot was a game. So I don't know. The more I do this longer as a medium, talking to spirits, researching spiritual topics, the universe is just one giant satirical funny, and I will never stop realizing the little funny ha-has that the universe thinks it's hilarious at itself with. So anyways, moving on. Let's go through the major arcana really quick, because I told you all to pull out your tarot cards if you have them. So I'm just going to list them off in order so that we can look at them in relation to all of the other cards as we move forward with today's podcast. So the first card in the major arcana, or part of the 22 trump cards, is the Fool, representative of new beginnings, adventure, spontaneity, and trusting in the universe. The second card, now associated with the number 1, is the Magician, representing resourcefulness, creativity, ingenuity, manifestation, and creating something from nothing. The next card is the High Priestess, representing subconscious mind, intuition, subtle movements which make big changes. The Empress is next, representing motherly love, fertility, nurturing, balance, and a positive neutral. The next card is the Emperor, representing leadership, unwavering command, decisiveness, and establishment. Next, we have the Hierophant, or the Hierophant, however you want to pronounce it, put the emphasis on wherever it goes. The Hierophant represents conformity, tradition, acceptance, and following in the footsteps of others. The next card is the Lovers, representing partnership, excitement, love, desire, and newness. The Chariot comes next, representing control, the overcoming of obstacles, forward movement, willpower, and just really taking command of the ship, if you will. The next card is the Strength card, representing courage, inner strength, compassion, and choosing to fight rather than to run or fawn from a challenge. The Hermit follows suit, and they represent introspection, solitude, rest, and reflection. The Wheel of Fortune comes next, representing karma, the circle of life, and fate. Justice comes in, representing truth, the law, consequences, and fairness. Next, we have the Hanged Man, representing of letting go, new perspectives, uncertainty, and possibly feeling restricted. The next card is the Death card, representing change, metamorphoses, upheaval, and transition. Next, we have Temperance, representing balance, pacing yourself, patience, and serenity. Followed by the Devil, representing obsession, secrecy, addiction, and mental health issues. The next is the Tower card, representing unexpected change, destruction, and traumas. Followed by the Star card, representing guidance, direction, hope, faith, and healing. Followed by the Moon card, which represents illusion, fear, and unpredictability. The Sun card follows suit, representing positivity, vitality, and opportunity. The second to last card is Judgment, representing forgiveness, self-evaluation, renewal, and decisiveness. And the last card in the hero's journey of the major arcana, with the Fool being the hero in the journey, is the World. The World card represents fulfillment, wholeness, and accomplishment. So that is the major arcana, representing major life events, overarching themes that are going on in your life or whoever it is that you're pulling cards for life. That was something that I'd never learned before, or at least hadn't seen with, I feel like when we learn tarot, there's just a lot of things that are thrown at you, things that you should do, things that you shouldn't do, stuff that you could look at it with, and rules and regulations. And I'm just trying to understand like the inner mechanics of it in order to be able to use it however you'd like. So the theory of tarot, I just thought it was interesting that the major arcana represents big life events. Now, we're going to be moving on to the minor arcana. This is 56 cards. There are 4 suits as well as 4 courts, and they're all called pip cards, I assume. Well, 1 through 10. So the aces through the 10s, because aces are synonymous with ones. If that helps you a little bit, because I was always like, why aren't there ones? It's because they're the ace cards. But, aces through the number 10. So 1 through 10, those are the pip cards. And then you also have the page, knight, queen, and king cards that are a part of the minor arcana. Now, the way I was able to understand this is the cards ace through 10 or 1 through 10. Those are going to be more representative of the details or the fine details of whatever's going on when you ask a question for tarot in either your life or the person that you're drawing cards for. These are going to be the certain semantics that are happening within whatever question you're trying to answer. And then when you look at the page, knight, queen, or king of each suit, so that's going to be, wands, cups, swords, or pentacles, those 4 cards are going to be more representative of the person themselves. So how do I want to explain this? I actually drew a circle on my paper to help me understand how to rationalize this a little bit better, because, again, this is the theory of tarot. So if you were to draw a card, say it's going to be the Ace of Wands. We're just going to stick with wands right now. The Ace of Wands is going to be representative of the specific details of whatever is happening in the person's life at that time. Then if you were to say draw the Knight of Wands, that's going to be representative of the feelings of the person that you're talking to, or the spirits around them as well. That's a little more advanced depending on what type of reading you're doing, because in my understanding, when you pull tarot cards, it's not necessarily you pulling the cards, it's the energy of the person and the souls around them that help the cards move more spiritually. So they have influence on what cards are being drawn, etc., etc. So if you pull the Knight of Wands, that's going to be representative of the person at that point in time, or the souls and spirits around them that are helping them. Does that make sense? And then the Ace of Wands is going to be further explaining the situation. So the Knight of Wands is the person in the situation, and then the Ace of Wands explains the situation that the Knight of Wands is in. Right? Exactly. And then say you pull one of the major arcana cards as well. Let's say the Magician. The Magician is going to be the big life event that's taking place for that person. And then the Knight of Wands is the person in the event, and the Ace of Wands explains the event. Right? So I drew circles to help me understand how to conceptualize the meanings of the cards or how they fall into place in relation to the person that I'm pulling cards for, whether it be myself or someone else. So we'll get into that more. I do want to say, if this is the first time you're listening to this podcast, I will be coming out with a tarot theory, page, if you will, that will be on Patreon at some point in the future. I have the information. I just need to tweak it and make it look professional and fun and presentable to you guys. But if that's something you're interested in, I will have that on Patreon in the future. Now, moving on. Again, it's important to understand how everything lines up. We talked about numbers and the number meanings last week, as well as the planets, and we already talked about the major arcana cards in descending order, starting with the Fool and ending with the World. Now, when it comes to the minor arcana, it's 56 cards. There's 4 suits. The 4 suits are the elements and or just like the icons of each card, and those are going to be Wands, Cups, Swords, and Pentacles. And that's in order because I guess the order is important as well. So when we're talking about what comes first and what comes last, again, I mean, at the end of the day, is it really that important what comes first and what comes last when you're talking about like the suits? I don't think so. But if it helps you understand and you're able to conceptualize the information easier, because again, the reason we're doing this podcast is because we want to be able to understand something, not necessarily just have to memorize everything. So if you understand the theory of it, then you can put it into practice. So just for theory's sake, those are the order. You move left to right and then, top to bottom. So wands is first, and wands represent the element of fire. So if you're pulling a wand card, it's also synonymous with clubs, because you can do tarot readings with just a normal deck of playing cards. You just won't have the trump cards necessarily. So wands represent the element of fire. They are the clubs and playing cards, and wands with their elemental fire representation are synonymous with our will, inspiration, and our motivations. They are our passions, our energy, our drive, our ambition, and our creativity. So really think like Mars or Aries sort of energy. That is wands. They're very vivacious and they deal with forward movement and creativity. Now, the next suit is going to be cups. Now, cups is representative or associated with the element of water, and in playing cards, they are spades. Now, cups and water represent matters of the soul and sentimental aspects of life. Cups represent our emotions, our intuition, and our relationships. So this is going to be a lot more fluid. It's going to be much more intuitive, if you will. Things that you don't necessarily know how you know, but you know it because it's a part of you. It's underlying. It's that subconscious sort of understanding of things, I feel like. And that's going to be cups. Next, we have swords. So the third suit is swords, and it is associated with the element of air. And swords are also the heart cards if you're using playing cards. And they represent the mind and consciousness, intellect, thoughts, decisions, and mental conflict. Now, I feel like this can be both subconscious and conscious, but swords, I think more so when I was reading and understanding the cards themselves and their representations or symbolism, it's more conscious thoughts, whereas water or cups is more subconscious thoughts. But I think, swords is just the consciousness in and of itself. It's the mind, it's decisions and mental conflicts. So things that have to do with thoughts, ideas, and like the forefront of your mind. Now, the last suit or the fourth suit is Pentacles, and Pentacles is related to the element of earth. The playing card that it is associated with is diamonds, because diamonds are earth, and it's representative of the material world: wealth, possessions, career, physical health, stability, abundance, commitment, and practicality. So think Tauruses. Lots of earthy Taurus energy is Pentacles. That's just how I remember it a lot. When it comes to cups, I think of Pisces. And when it comes to air, I think of like Geminis. But that's just me. If you have certain zodiac signs that you understand with the elements and that can help you with remembering tarot cards, go for it. Write those things down, my dudes. So anyways, Pentacles are the element of earth, and they deal with the material world, wealth, possessions, career, physical health, stability, abundance, commitment, and practicality. I thought commitment was interesting, and like being practical. I liked that idea. That was something new that I learned. All right, now before we move on through the aces to the tens and those card meanings, I just want to talk about what aces, knights, page, kings, and queens are all representative of. So we've already talked about how aces are synonymous with the position of one, right? But it says aces also represent new beginnings, new cycles, new journeys. I feel like they're the page card, but they're more spiritually led. I feel like page cards, when it comes to pages, pages are kind of like the Fool, but I think pages are more conscious thinkers, whereas aces are more like intuitive thinkers. Like a page is going to make a decision on a whim or a will, whereas an ace is going to be more like divinely led. But that's just my own personal thing. I figured I would share it with people if that's something that feels aligned with your own spiritual inklings, intonations, whatever it is in your practice. But that's just me. So aces, synonymous with the number one, and the number one also is representative of leadership and new beginnings, if that helps reiterate that to you. Aces represent new beginnings, new cycles, new journeys, and I think that they're like pages, but more spiritually led. Now, knights represent taking initiative, accountability, and action. They're the movement which brings change to something. And I can never, ever get the silly, what was it, Harry Potter scene where Ron is a knight and like the knight moves in odd ways. That's kind of how I remember knights. They represent movement and taking action. Or a knight, if you're thinking about like medieval ways, they were sent out by the king and queen to do things. They have a certain job, a certain task, and they're going to get it done, and they're going to do it with like in a certain way, depending on whoever that knight is. So that's another way to help remember knights. Now, the next card is pages. Pages represent new beginnings, a fresh start, and new perspectives. They're like a student who's embarking on a journey. They're naive and they're unseasoned. In the horse world, we call those people green beans or green people. They're green. They don't really know how to do things, but they're willing to learn nonetheless. They usually make lots of mistakes, but it comes into, are they able to be taught, or do they not really want to be teachable? So that can really move the page's journey. Moving on, the queen. The queen is inward leadership. They represent intuition, nurturing, and manifestation. So I would say, like, if you were to pull a queen card, depending on the suit, the queen is going to be more things that you need to listen to that are coming from you, that more intuitive and inward understanding of stuff, like introspection. Whereas the king is outward leadership. They represent authority, power, mastery, and wisdom. So we had a podcast not too long ago where I talked about intuition and that intuition can be like wisdom. However, wisdom comes after doing something, after physically going through it. It's kind of like the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is being able to wholeheartedly relate to someone because you've gone through that instance, whereas sympathy is being able to relate to someone even though you haven't gone through that situation, like you've never actually physically experienced it. I think intuition is a lot like sympathy, whereas wisdom is a lot like empathy. So you've gone through it, and now because of that, you're wiser for it. So the queen is inward leadership, intuition, nurturing, and manifestation. And the king is outward leadership, authority, power, mastery, and wisdom. So I know that was probably a lot for you guys, but we're going to forge ahead anyways. I hope you guys are following along. If not, take a break. Take a sip of your tea if you're drinking tea. I had a friend recently make me this adorable tea called the Psychic Unicorn, and I have yet to drink it because I need one of those little tea balls or whatever because I don't have something that like holds loose leaf tea, but it has glitter in it. And I'm so freaking excited about the fact that there's glittery tea. I cannot express to you the excitement that I have inside my body. I almost don't even want to like drink it because it's just so pretty to look at. Anyways, that was your little interlude to do whatever you need to as we move into the next cards and their meanings. Now, we're going to go through the wands because, again, I'm just going to keep laying out these cards in the way that, according to theory, they start. So first is fire, and that's going to be the wand cards. Now, the first card in the wands is the Ace of Wands because, remember, aces deal with the number 1. The Ace of Wands deals with inspiration, new potential, and good news. The next card, of course, is the Second of Wands because we're going, 1 through 10. So the Two of Wands deals with choosing a choice, making a decision, having options or discovery of the options that you have. The Three of Wands deals in believing in yourself, moving forward, traveling, outward expression, and creativity. Now, the Four of Wands deals with community, reunions, celebrations, and coming together. The Five of Wands deals with conflict, disagreement, and unbalance. Now, the way I'm able to remember the difference between the Four of Wands and the Five of Wands is because the number 4 specifically in Chaldean numerology represents stability and practicality. So it deals with, coming together, community, celebrations, reunions. That's the Four of Wands. And then the Five of Wands always trips me up because I'm like, okay, a fours I see as like a table. They're stable, right? But when then you have the five kind of like just throws a wrench in things, or a spanner, if you will, if you're from Australia. And that leads to the Five of Wands, which is conflict, disagreement, and unbalance. That's just something that helps me. Now, the Six of Wands deals with victory, being prideful, and success. The Seven of Wands deals with assertiveness, standing up for yourself, morality, or maintaining control. The Eight of Wands deals with hastiness, lust, infatuation, movement, and not thinking before you act. The Nine of Wands deals with not giving up, persistence, perseverance, and exhaustion. The Ten of Wands deals with overburdenedness or feeling burnt out. It's almost like you got too many sticks and you're tired of picking them up all the time. That's how I remember it. Now we've reached the 10. So after the ace through the tens, now we get into the page, knight, queen, and king. And that's why I kind of went into the representation of those court cards, if you will, because you have the pip cards, which is ace through tens, and then the court cards, which are page, knight, queen, and king. So the Page of Wands, remember, because pages deal with new beginnings, fresh starts, new perspectives, naivety, and being unseasoned. The Page of Wands deals with finding your passion, good news, exciting plans, talking and sharing thoughts with others. Because remember, wands deal with creativity, passion, energy, drive, ambition, inspiration, things like that. This is a very inspiring card. Now you have the Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands deal with open-mindedness, a willing to take risks, self-assuredness, and putting yourself out there. The Queen of Wands represents being vivacious, taking charge, getting things accomplished, and feeling courageous. And the King of Wands deals with free thinking, being a good leader, having confidence, and taking action. Now, if you go back and you think about what cups represent and what wands represent, as well as the numbers here and there, that's why I kind of just went through the numbers too, is I did find that there's a little bit of disagreement when it comes to the numbers. Not so much in the major arcana, but there is more in the minor arcana. So don't put yourself too studious on that, if you will. But yeah, I think being able to structure it that way in a left to right, top to bottom sort of fashion helps you conceptualize things. I do want to say, once we're done with the next 3 suits and their court cards as well and the meanings, we're going to be talking about ways that you can spread out your cards and things like that. So like tarot spread, ways to read them that might be a little more intuitive and creative than other spreads. So next, we're moving on to cup cards. So the Ace of Cups. Remember, cups represent the element of water, and they deal with matters of the soul and sentimental aspects of life, such as emotion, intuition, and relationships. The one thing I do want to pick out to you on this is some of the cards like the card meanings may not be very intuitive all the time. And one of the ways that has helped me to understand this is that emotions are hard. I feel like because tarot cards, when you put them down, have an upright and a reverse meaning, I feel like all of the upright meanings should be positive, and the cup cards really throw you for a loop when they're not. I don't know why. For me, it's the cups that are harder for me to understand that way. But when I was going through and trying to understand, okay, what are ways that I can use to learn these, right, and understand them, the information that came through is emotions are hard. So a lot of the times when the cups are in upright position, they might mean things that aren't always super positive unless they're flipped over. So anyways, moving on, the Ace of Cups. The Ace of Cups represents new relationships, new love, conception of something new to you emotionally. The Two of Cups represents attraction, compatibility, and partnership. The Three of Cups represents socializing, gatherings, treating yourself. The Four of Cups represents regret, boredom, refusing opportunities, or stubbornness of being set in your ways. The Five of Cups represents sadness, loss, grief, disappointment. The Six of Cups represents reflection or thinking about the past or being very reminiscent. The Seven of Cups deals with daydreamy, unrealistic, wishful thinking and choices, temptation, or the balance between dreams and reality. Think Pisces. Again, when I said I thought about cup cards as being very Pisces-y or very like a Cancer a bit. Now, the next card is the Eight of Cups. This card represents letting go of the old to pursue something new, cutting ties, or creating new bonds. The Nine of Cups deals with personal emotional fulfillment. The 10 of Cups deals with groups and or couples' emotional fulfillment and happiness. So the 9 of Cups is you and your personal emotional fulfillment, while as the 10 of Cups is like if you're in a family or a relationship or children, group at work, things like that, that's going to be emotional fulfillment of that group. Now we go into the court cards. So we have the Page of Cups. The Page of Cups represents embracing new or childhood-like emotions. So this is a very like inner child sort of card of maybe when you were little, you may have felt restricted. Like, what's something for me? When I was little, I was embarrassed to sing out loud. That is still something that I'm very embarrassed about. I'm not going to get into the story of why, but that is one of my childhood insecurities. And when I really feel like I can embrace a more creative side of myself is when I feel like I can sing out loud, but I still only do that when I'm alone. So that's a very like Page of Cups type of thing. Like what thing from your childhood that you never really felt like you could embrace do you embrace? Or it could just be things from your childhood that you haven't embraced since you were a kid, because, you know, being an adult is very different than being a child, and you're sort of going back and rediscovering that childhood like wonder. Now, the next court card for cups is the Knight of Cups, and the Knight of Cups deals with emotional openness, romantic potential, following your heart's desire. So this is kind of like the, for all of you that would think that's funny too, it's like the Shrek card. You know, Shrek's going to be like the knight in shining armor or any other type of like Prince Charming. Like you're going to be going out and being the person that is ready for a relationship, that type of thing. Because I just did a reading a little while ago with a lovely human being, and they were asking about a relationship. And I feel like if I were to give them a tarot reading, the Knight of Cups would have been something that happens in the future, because as of right now, they're not ready to be in a new relationship, nor are they looking for one. But I feel like after heartbreak, this could be a card that would come up in a tarot spread for someone where they're finally ready to embrace a new relationship, whether that be with themselves or someone else. Now, the next court card in the Cups suit is going to be the Queen of Cups. So the Queen of Cups represents intuitively being empathetic to others. You're emotionally mature and you're embracing emotional intelligence for yourself. So it's a very internal thing, because remember, queens are the inward leadership. Now, the last card in the suit of cups for the court cards is the King card. So the King of Cups deals with balancing logic and emotion and having compassion. So one of the things that I've personally been struggling with is finding balance between logically trying to evaluate my emotions and just feeling them. So I feel like this could be a good representation of the King of Cups, where you are able to find that balance. Have I found that balance yet? No. Have I ever really pulled the King of Cup card? I don't think I can recall it. So when that day comes, maybe I'll let you guys know, because I'm not there yet in my Fool's journey. All right, moving on to the sword suit. So the swords are going to start, of course, with the Ace of Swords. The Ace of Swords represents mental clarity, decisiveness, when an answer to something becomes very clear. This is like the claircognizant representation of a tarot card. I also want to say, just to recap, swords deal with the element of air, and they represent the mind, the consciousness, intellect, thoughts, decisions, and mental conflict. So moving on to the Two of Swords. The Two of Swords represents kind of like the opposite of the Ace of Swords. So the Ace of Swords was mental clarity and decisiveness, when things all of a sudden sort of become clear, like the answer has been given to you. Now the Two of Swords is the opposite. The Two of Swords represents being stuck. You're at a crossroads. You're unable to make a decision. Think of the Two of Swords like the Frost poem, like two woods diverged, or two roads diverged in a wood. You don't know which one to take, that type of thing. So you just kind of sit there because you don't know what to do. Moving on to the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords represents healing and growth through heartbreak, grief, pain, and sorrow. So the Three of Swords, most notably, is usually representative of a heart with three swords being plunged through it. But I do think that when you have heartbreak, when you have grief, it does help you understand your emotions. It gives you more of a direction. It's like, okay, if this hurts, then what can I learn from it? I think it's interesting to see how the swords and the logic play in this card here. So this Three of Swords represents healing and growth through heartbreak. Now the Four of Swords represents solitude for mental healing. It's almost like a moment of silence to clear your thoughts and recollect yourself before moving forward. It's a little interesting. It's kind of like the mental version of the Hermit, but in the Swords card. Now, the Five of Swords deals with facing multiple challenges, a need for better communication with others, and possibly narrow-mindedness. So again, five is like, fours represent a table of like being stable, but now the fives, again, throwing a spanner in the works, or sword, if you will, and you're having too many challenges. So facing multiple challenges, a need for better communication with others, or you're being too narrow-minded and you need to open yourself up. Anyways, the Six of Swords deals with transitional path, moving towards calmer waters, or working towards finding balance. The Seven of Swords deals with inner and outer deception, hidden agendas, betrayal, cleverness, and selfishness. The Eight of Swords deals with self-imposed limitations or feeling trapped. The Nine of Swords deals with worry, fear, mental anguish, anxiety, and depression. The Ten of Swords deals with hitting rock bottom, an end of a cycle, painful truths, and acceptance. And now we're moving on to the court cards of the sword suit. So the Page of Swords deals with suggestions to being open to new ideas, curiosity, and a time of intellectual prowess. So like that aha moment that drives you in a new direction. You're like, oh, all of these things were leading me here. Now I'm going to take this creativity and I'm going to run with it and see what happens because I think I know where it's leading me. Now, the Knight of Swords deals with bold and decisive action, powerful focus, or hyper-awareness. The Queen of Swords deals with balancing emotion and logic, setting boundaries, having excellent communication skills, and an omnipresent sort of thought processes. So it's almost like you can see everything and all of the moving pieces. It's like a very Virgo-y card, if you will. And you know what you have to do because you have all the puzzle pieces in front of you and now you're just putting them together. That is like the Queen of Swords energy. Now, the King of Swords deals with objective thought processing, intellectual authority, balanced emotions with logic. So it's very interesting. I find the swords just interesting in and of itself, being like with the element of air. There's a lot of symbolism there that kind of goes through the pip cards and down into the court cards. We've finally reached the fourth suit, which is the Pentacles, representing the element earth, material things, abundance, commitment, practicality. And we're going to move on with the Ace of Pentacles. So the Ace of Pentacles is the first card in the pip cards, and it represents new beginnings with material things. Very simple. The second card, or the Two of Pentacles, deals with juggling multiple priorities in life and adaptability. The Three of Pentacles deals with teamwork, collaboration, or sharing ideas. The Four of Pentacles deals with resource guarding, overcautious of maintaining your stability. The Five of Pentacles deals with material losses, seclusion, and isolation. The Six of Pentacles deals with giving to others, compassion, and sharing resources. The Seven of Pentacles deals with slow and steady wins. The Seven of Pentacles, I wrote down, deals with like being like the tortoise and the hare type of story. So slow and steady wins the race, persistence and patience in achieving your goals. The Eight of Pentacles deals with reaping with what you sow. So it's the hard work and dedication that brings you to understanding that, things will grow once you plant the seed. So it's finding the balance between growth and sacrifice for that growth. So not working too hard out in the fields because then it's almost like nothing will grow. It's that balance. Now we have the Nine of Pentacles. The Nine of Pentacles represents financial stability and being able to treat yourself to the material things you'd like. The Ten of Pentacles deals with generational wealth and family material stability. So this is like you have that big garden and now you're passing that garden on to someone else. It's that wealth will be there for a while. It's self-sustaining, if you will. Now that we move on to the four court cards in the Pentacle suit. So the Page of Pentacles deals with material understanding and literacy, or manifesting more through material gain. The Knight of Pentacles deals with being detail-oriented, hardworking, reliable, and you're just like Old Faithful when it comes to all of the material things in your life. Now the Queen of Pentacles deals with being grounded, nurturing, and bringing stability to material things and family. And lastly, the King of Pentacles. The King of Pentacles deals with being reliable. You have a lot of abundance, material success, and good management of assets. You're wise with your resources. So those are all of the cards in the Minor Arcana. Are you excited about having this as a resource? I am. I'm excited about it. I've never been able to break it down before and like put the theory behind everything. So it makes it exciting to me. Now, just to say one more time, the Major Arcana, those cards, those 22 cards probably sitting on the floor or the table in front of you, those are representative of major life events. It's like the big overarching theme of whatever it is that you're doing when you're pulling the tarot cards. I kind of wrote like circles inside of a circle inside of a circle. So like 3 rings, right? And that's kind of how you can understand visually how to interpret cards, if that's the way that you want to go about it. If not, that's okay too. I'm just giving you things that popped into my head that maybe I'll be able to use in practice as well, or just will help me with understanding and learning the cards' meanings and symbolisms. So the first big circle that you draw, or an onion, if you will, if you want to go with Shrek. The first outer layer is going to be the major arcana. Those are the overarching themes that are happening in your life or the person that you're drawing tarot cards for's life. So there's going to be the Fool cards, the High Priestess, the World, Temperance, Death, etc. Now the minor arcana, you're going to draw another circle inside that big circle. So just a little bit of a smaller circle inside of that. So it looks like tree rings or an onion. The next little circle is going to be representative of the court cards in any suit. So that's going to be a page, a knight, a queen, or a king. And that's going to be representative of who that person is in that major life event, or the souls or spirits that are helping them. Because I do feel like if you pull a Queen of Wands, that could be representative of like a spirit guide or past loved one that's trying to get the symbolism of that card or the meaning of that card across to the person that you're giving a reading to. Now, you're going to draw one more circle just in the middle. So you'll have 3 little circles like tree rings or like an onion. Now, that third circle is going to be representative of the pip cards. And that's going to be the details of what's going on in that person's life based on whatever it is that the question that they asked you for and the court card that's at play as well. So if they're dealing with like 2 of Wands things, which is choosing a choice or having options for something, that's gonna help you understand, more of the semantics of what's going on in the spread. So that's one thing that I just I wanted to talk about a little bit, and it is a good segue into spreads themselves. So when it comes to tarot cards, like I've mentioned in last week's podcast briefly, and again today in this week's podcast briefly, what I read to you majorly was the upright position meaning of each card. So if that card is in the reverse or upside down position, that is going to indicate the opposite meaning. So whatever the meaning of that card was, give it the opposite. If you have choices and the card in the upright position means that you have choices, if you do that card in the reverse position, it means you have no choices. You feel like you don't, at least. So do with that what you will. When I originally had a tarot reading, I want to say my first tarot reading was with my mom, and I was probably, I think I was 16 because I had my first like official boyfriend, 16 or 17, and I had my temp license. So yeah, 16 or 17 is when I had my first original tarot reading. I used to think that you had to touch the cards, and if you didn't touch the cards, then the person that was giving you a tarot reading was a load of malarkey. But I've come to learn over the 5 years of doing mediumship things and learning about spirituality more professionally that the energy that moves the tarot cards in the spread is not necessarily dictated by you touching the cards, because whoever's going to be shuffling that deck for you is going to be, I want to say intuitively, but it's not necessarily a conscious thing. It's like subconsciously they're going to be manipulated, or energetically they're going to be channeling the energy around you and of the spirit guides and souls of the past loved ones that are there to help guide you in your tarot reading. So it's more like the energy of you and the energy associated with you is going to be what's pulling those tarot cards, even though someone else has the tarot cards physically in their hand. So the first time I had a tarot reading, I was given the cards by this lovely woman, and she told me to shuffle the cards until they felt good and then split the deck in 2. And that is one way that you can read cards. Specifically, the way that this lovely woman would read cards was you'd shuffle until it felt good, you'd split the deck in 2, and then give her one half of the deck and then put the other half in front of you. Now, the part of the deck that I would give to this person, she would just go off the top of the cards, and she would tell me what was going on in my life, like past, present, future, honestly. She would just keep going and going and going and talking at me almost like it was a psychic reading, right? And it was a psychic reading. She was doing tarot cards. And then she would just talk at me almost like a psychic reading, or, I mean, I don't think she did medium things. She never really talked about past loved ones. But then once she got to almost like what felt like the end of her giving me information about myself and answering questions for the future, stuff that's going on in the present, she would ask me, do you have questions? And she would pick up the second part of the deck that she had told me to put down next to me. And I would ask a question and she'd pull 1, 2, 3 cards off the top, and then that would answer them. I have never seen anyone else on the internet read the way that she did. And I thought it was really, really cool. So I wanted to share it with you guys. If that's something that you want to use in your spiritual practice, go for it. So if you're doing in-person readings with someone, or even if they're on the internet, if it's virtual, like how I do my Zoom readings, then ask them, I'm going to shuffle these cards until you tell me to stop. And then once you do, I'm going to split it in half. And then you tell me what half you want me to put down. And then the other ones I'm going to read, and just see what the cards say to you about that person in their life. And then use the second stack to answer any questions, which I don't know, I thought it was really cool. So now, the other way that you can read cards that was discovered on PsycKicks was we did a YouTube video with my friend Julie a very long time ago. She reads Ogham, which is a Celtic form of divination with runes on like little acorn-looking pieces of wood. So there's lots of different ways for divination. But the way that you read Ogham runes, it's kind of like charms with runes on them. She has little acorn charms, if you will, or just like acorn wooden shapes that have different runes, Celtic runes on them, and then she throws them out. So the way that you can also do this is you can pick however many cards you want, similar to Ogham. Pick, I don't know, however many cards the person that you want to do a reading for yourself wants. And then you sort of just put them upside down and shuffle them in front of you. And some will be on the left, some will be in the middle, and some will be on the right. So for Celtic Ogham, if you're going to do a spread that's similar to how you read Ogham, it's going to be like a tree. So anything's cast out in front of you and to the left and to the right, kind of like tree branches. So anything to the left is things that you are struggling with, and anything to the right is stuff that's easier for you to deal with. Things or cards that are closer to you deal with things in the past. Things in the middle deal with the present, and cards farther out from you deal with things in the future. So you can read that however you like. But if you want to look up how to read Ogham in a tree-like structure and then do tarot cards the same way, it's very fun. I like it. I think it's a fun way to read cards. Now, the other ways that I've seen people read cards is cards that just fly out at random. If you're shuffling and a card just flies out, apparently that card is meant for you, and you can keep shuffling until the cards stop flying out, or you can just have a set number of cards that you'd like and set those up however they feel good to you, whether they're upright, reverse, whatever you want to do. There are also actual spreads that you can look up. Have I ever looked up an actual spread? No. But I'm sure they were created in the same sort of energy of creativity in the way that I'm giving you ways to read tarot cards now in certain spreads. So I don't know, go for that. If you want to look up certain spreads on the internet that other people have already came up with, you can definitely do that as well. Now, I did write down a couple things. Let me see if I can find them as you hear me move through all of my pieces of paper, because I'm an old person who likes to write things. I wrote down two things that, like a couple ideas that popped into my head while researching all of this for the theory of tarot, was that types of cards pulled out can tell you a lot about the person that you're reading and how they portray or think about themselves. So how I said, for me, cup cards, since they deal with emotions, are very much like Pisces. So like sometimes they can be very wishy-washy or emotional. So if you are pulling a lot of cup cards for someone, that might be what they're dealing with right now, a lot of emotions, or they might be a very emotional person. Or if you really like astrology, because all of these things can be very intertwined, maybe that person is just a water sign and they have a lot of water in their chart anyways. So therefore, that's going to be thrown out in their tarot spread too. Now, this is one other thing that I wanted to say for how you could do a spread, which I've never seen someone do a spread like this, nor have I ever done it. So if you guys want to let me know in the comments below, if you try this spread and how it works out, whether it's on yourself or someone else, please, I would love to know how it works. So pull cards out and order them in numerical and suit order, and then read them. So have the trump cards be first, and then the pip cards in order of their suit and their numbers in the court, and then see how that sort of creates a story for this person. It kind of goes in like the tree ring or the onion way as well. So you could put them out in like a circle, or if you want to read them left to right, but order them in order of first the trump card and then the pip and suit cards. I don't know. I thought that would be really cool too. So that is everything that I have for you lovely people on the theory of tarot. I hope it was helpful. I hope you're able to dive into your own tarot experience and integrate it into your own spiritual practices how you see fit. I think there is no wrong way necessarily to do tarot or to learn tarot. I just wanted to give everyone ways that have been able to help me, because again, I struggled with learning things as a child and learning how to learn, as well as just, I felt like a lot of people growing up, when they would give me a concept to try and understand, they would only explain it one way. So I hope that this podcast was able to give you a different way to look at how to understand tarot, to give you the freedom to put it into practice how you please. So thank you all for listening. If you're interested in a reading, please go down in the description below or the show notes, depending on where you're listening to this podcast on, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcast, or our PsycKicks Extras YouTube channel, and go onto our website. I think I have availability for March, and soon there'll be availability for April. Thank you all so much for listening and for your support, and I hope you all have a lovely Sunday. Peace.